All right, guys, my name is Rob, and I am the owner and founder of Wreck-It. We're going to give you a little tour of our space. We call it the Center for Social Change. It's a nonprofit co-working space, and it's how we started. So we felt that it should be part of this segment. So come on in, and thank you very much for being here. So, as I mentioned before, we are a co-working space, and we house mostly nonprofits that are, working with the environment, kids in foster care, and things that are involved with social impact. And this is how we started, and we wanted to basically partner with organizations like them to help them with their tech needs. And then we've slowly branched out of that and help small businesses, schools, and any individual that just needs help with their tech devices. So come on back. So we'll have to cut out.
So Rob, if you don't mind me asking, what made you get into this business?
So I got into this business because of really a personal need. So back to the story of the nonprofit, I started working here in 2015. I didn't even know how to use a MacBook, and they were donated to us, to the nonprofit. And so I started playing with it. However, the MacBook that I had that I received was super slow. And through the training that I had with tech, I started kind of diving into why the machine was so slow. And that led me down this huge rabbit hole of basically the MacBook was dying due to a failing hard drive. And so what I realized was it was using a mechanical hard drive, and we replaced that with what's called a solid state drive. And this was like a 2012 MacBook, right? And that was just the technology at the time. So through my own needs, I discovered that, installed a new solid state drive, installed the software, and lo and behold, the MacBook came right back to life. I mean, literally 15 times faster the moment it turns on. That's kind of when the light bulb hit that this problem was across the board, with MacBooks, PCs, iMacs, whatever. And then I realized that, this was a need, or could be a need. And so I started marketing that to the nonprofits here and everyone that they knew to kind of see if this was going to be something viable and scalable. And sure enough, people started bringing us their Macs, their PCs. Most of them worked, but they were just slow. And so I realized that we could just take a solid state drive and install it into those machines, and they'd come right back to life, And so that was the big aha moment for us. Right. And then that slowly evolved, of course, into repairs, other upgrades, gaming PCs, things like that. But we specifically love bringing back the iMacs, that Apple has deemed no longer viable, right? So, and we can bring them back to life as old as 2009. So from 2009 to 2019, that entire decade of machines all come from the factory, the majority of them with mechanical drives, which are designed to eventually get slower. So by opening them and replacing them with a solid state drive, you can bring them right back to life. Most of them, when you actually update the software, those machines get slower because they're not designed to run on those old mechanical drives. It's something intentional that Apple does. And so they'll deem it, okay, the computer's just old and slow, and convince everyone that they just need to replace the machine, which is not true at all. They just don't want to do that specific upgrade, because if they offer that service, no one's going to buy a brand new computer, right? Yeah. So it undermines their entire philosophy.
And that's why after 2019, they switched to silicone.
Exactly. So after 2019, they started providing solid state drives, which makes the computer much faster. However, they've removed all upgradability to MacBooks, to iMacs, which is super unfortunate, because they're slowly dissolving our right to repair, which is something that everyone should be entitled to once you purchase a specific product, whether it be a car or whatever. And to increase the longevity of the machine and your investment, so we shouldn't have to be replacing machines every 2 or 3 years, but that's what they want, so that's what helps their bottom line. So our philosophy is the opposite. You know, we take older machines that people have discarded or think are not valuable anymore, and we upgrade them, we bring them back to life.
Right.
And what's amazing is with the help of this software called OpenCore, which is a community of software developers, we can also go back in time and take, let's say specifically 2011 iMac, and we can not only upgrade the hardware, but we can also update the software so that it can actually run newer versions of the Apple operating system. By doing so, you basically have a new machine. You know, it's not going to perform like the $2,000 machine, but you're talking about a price point at as low as $200, you know, to bring it back to life. And you'll have 2025 software, you can run new Microsoft Office, you can pay your bills. And we realized for most people, that will cover 90% of people's needs. You know, most people just need a working computer to pay bills, to go to school, things like that. Then you have your few people with video editing needs and things like that, and that's another subject, you know, and which we can also provide services of. But we realized for the majority of people, they just need something that'll work, you know, and do their day-to-day things. And so there's no reason to go to the Apple Store and spend, you know, $1,500, you know, when you already have an existing machine, right? So we're trying to change the way people think and see their electronics, specifically laptops, desktops. Unfortunately, you can't really do much with tablets and phones, but at least with laptops and desktops, you can. There's a lot of options there. And we specifically help people with iMacs because people still remember going to the store and spending the $1,500 on that machine. And it's such a beautiful machine, you don't just want to discard it, right? You know, it's not trash. Exactly. So usually once you upgrade that hard drive, you know, you could get another 3 to 5 years out of that machine. So it's like, why discard it? And so we dedicate getting that message out there to people who have small businesses, you know, who have low-income schools, low-income housing, nonprofits, businesses that have multiple employees. Like, why spend that money when you don't have to, right? You can really, with $2,000, you're talking about you could upgrade, you know, 10 machines, you know, whereas otherwise you're just buying one, you know. And if you got a family of 4 that all with kids that need computers, and you know, that's not going to solve your problem. But so what we do is it's sustainable, it's affordable, and it's just a great solution to a really huge problem, which is the trash problem, right? So an Apple, they won't even buy back your machines. You know, if they do, they'll offer you pennies on the dollar, right? So most people end up holding them onto them for years, and they just sit in the closet or garage. And that's what we realized, that people weren't disposing of the machines because they still had like sentimental value, but they also didn't know what to do with the machine because it was so slow, it was unusable. But the solid state drive is like, has changed everything, you know. So it's amazing.
Outside of Mac, I know that ever since the 2019, and after that being switched over to their own solid state drive, is there any way that Apple's going to switch over? Because obviously Windows software and everything else on the other side, they're more customizable, they're more easy access, easily to be able to interchange whatever parts that you want. Would Apple ever want to come back? Because the competition is, they're going to lose out in the market, obviously, if they keep going this direction.
Oh yeah, if they keep going to their like planned obsolescence direction.
Exactly,
yeah, I think, you know, it's time will only tell, but it seems to me that they have this illusion of their brand that their machines don't break or don't need to be upgraded, right? So, and people are starting to realize that, and as the gaming and the custom PC market grows, I think a lot of people who are in those niche markets like video editing and photo editing, they like the options to be able to customize their machines, you know, and ultimately, in my experience, you get a lot more for your money when you do one of those custom machines. And that's the service that we love doing. We love building them. Because for once we're not just solving a problem, we actually get to create something, which is great. So actually talk more about the space too, since I feel like I didn't mention a lot of the details of it.
Are those 4070s in there?
Yeah. So I just built 4 custom gaming rigs for an indoor golf training center in South Miami. Yeah, so he got 4070s Super TIs with the Kraken, all-in-one cooler. Yeah. So yeah, this is like just the remnants of some of the boxes. There was a lot more. Perfect. So we'll grab.
Especially being in Miami, you get a lot of business too, man.
Oh yeah. So let's see. So we'll grab this big 27-inch here as a perfect example. This is actually a 2014.
It's i7.
What's that?
i7.
This one is probably an i5. Most of them are i5s. Only the top of the line ones. Watch out, Freddie is right behind you. So puppy's right behind you. So yeah, so we're gonna grab this and we're gonna go to the other office. So that way we can do the video. And I'll just leave this. I'll close this. Yeah. So. We'll bring this over.
Yes, sir.
Come on, Freddie. Come on, Bubba. Let's go. So he can be in the shots. Perfect. So amazing. So put this back here.
What's the typical turnaround time for because I remember when I brought my PC, you kind of got it done pretty fast.
Yeah, so it depends on what upgrades we're doing, but assuming we have the parts, we can usually do it within 24 to 48 hours. So a lot of the iMacs, if we're not doing any kind of crazy data transfers, we can a lot of times do it same day. That's how efficient we've got the process down, especially if it's brought in the morning. But most people, we tell them 24 hours. Yeah, we have all the parts in stock, which we usually do, and that's the case for battery replacements, screen replacements for MacBooks, SSD and RAM upgrades for the iMacs and the software. So here we have, this is a 2014 iMac that I've taken the screen off of, and this will kind of give you a look at what they look like inside. And as you'll notice, so these are the hard drives that actually come from the factory from Apple when you purchase one, and from 2009 to 2019 you'll either get like a Seagate like this, which is the 27-inch one, which is still a mechanical drive, or Western Digital. So Apple doesn't manufacture the hard drives. They outsource most of their stuff, which most people don't realize.
That's 1 terabyte.
Yeah, that's a 1 terabyte. That's pretty standard. And this is actually a 7,200 RPM drive, so it's not going to be as slow as the smaller 21.5-inch models. Those are really designed for very basic work. And actually, I can show you, this is a perfect example of one. This is a 2015 model that was brought to us, and we removed this hard drive. This is the culprit to all the 21.5-inch hard drives. And you'll notice the company is HGST, which is a random company that no one's ever heard of, from Japan.
Is it good?
No, they're very entry-level machines. Yeah, they were good when the computers were manufactured, but over time, like I was saying before, when you update your Mac and you have these old drives cannot compete with the new software, and so it immediately slows it down, right? And that's intentional, because that's how Apple keeps making you chase the new software and the new hardware, because they want the speed.
So the allegations are true.
Oh yeah, the allegations are very true. Yeah. They've already settled in court by doing that to the iPhones. I personally was affected by that.
Yeah.
So we realized that. So when they come out with a new update and you're super excited, know that if your computer, your Mac, is on the border of being slow and kind of already struggling, then that update is going to make it even worse. And so people think that updating it will actually fix it or make it better, but it's actually the opposite. Typically updating it is only going to make it worse, because the new software is more demanding on the hardware. So that's what we do. We remove these old drives with a new solid state drive, because this is a mechanical drive, and the new drive is 15 times faster. So, and you'll notice it, and this is a perfect example. This one just finished we actually need to patch it real quick because you'll notice right now it's still a little laggy. So give me 1 second. I'm gonna patch it and then we can edit that. Perfect. So this machine here is a customer's who brought it in this week. This is a 2012 27 iMac, 27-inch iMac, and we upgraded it to 32 gigs of RAM, and we put in a solid-state drive. But what the kicker is here is that it's running the latest software that Apple has, which is macOS Sequoia, and with even the latest patch updates. So it's 15.3.1. So it's literally up to date to this point. And
low latency. So I know it's 12, but like sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's not going to perform like the silicon ones, but it does have a SSD, and you can see here we can start opening up everything, and it'll actually keep up with you pretty nicely, considering this machine is over 10 years old.
Wow, that's pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. You know, it's the power of the solid state drive. You know, because that's people think that the memory is everything for the computer, and yes, it is important when you're multitasking. However, the operating system and all the programs live on the hard drive. So if the hard drive starts to fail, then the entire computer starts to fail, right? So you need a solid state drive to read and write that information as fast as possible, and that's why you see the difference the moment you install one. So but yeah, this machine is from 2012 and it runs the software perfectly. And this machine, the customer could probably get another 3 years, 4 years, maybe even longer. Just depends how you drive it, kind of like a car.
Quick question for the audience, just to clarify the difference between an internal SSD and an external SSD. What's the difference between because like, instead of like some people, they'll try to go through the hassle of just trying not to go through the hassle of getting like internal software like installed, finding somebody, and they'll try to get an external. But what's the difference?
Right. So the difference is when you have an external hard drive, whether it be solid state or mechanical, you're actually still being bottlenecked by the USB port, right? So it'll only transfer speed as fast as the USB port will allow, whether it's 2.0 or 3.0. And so that really makes a big difference when you start getting to the newer models, like let's say a 2017 iMac, which now has the Thunderbolt ports, right? The USB-C ports. Those can now read and write information extremely fast. And if you have an external SSD, you're talking about you can move 50 gigabytes of data within 3 minutes. You know, we do it every single day. That's how we can knock out 5 of these machines a day because we're using a Mac that uses USB-C, and we can transfer data within minutes. And that's a big difference. So when you have the SSD inside the machine, it's actually now connected via a SATA cable directly to the motherboard, which is a little bit faster. So the SSD externally could work, but it's not an ideal scenario. Some people do that as a side hack, but really what you need to do is you need to take the screen off and you need to install an SSD via the SATA cable that's inside. It's more internally. Yeah, it's more efficient and it's more streamlined, because you don't want to be dragging a cable.
God forbid you knock it. And then it's
exactly. So it needs to be inside. And then another fun fact with these iMacs, people always damage the screens and ask us, when they say it's a Retina display or whatever, Apple's, these screens are actually manufactured by LG, the TV manufacturer. And that's the case for most computers. Most computers with any kind of display, most displays are manufactured by LG. And that's not really a problem to say, but it's just, I find it funny when Apple says, oh, it's a 5K Retina display, which is kind of a term that they just created. Really, it's a 5K LG display, so they're just kind of taking the credit there. So I just find that funny. So when people think Apple, they're manufacturing everything, they're doing everything, they're actually just picking and choosing the manufacturers and then having it all sent to their assembly line and then having it assembled. What you're really paying for is their software, which is genius. It's really, really great. And that's why it was such a huge impact when our friends over at OpenCore, which, you know, if no one's heard of OpenCore, and they are like a DIY, you know, techie, OpenCore here, you know, I have to give them a big thank you to them, because they really have helped us with our mission. OpenCore Legacy Patcher, they basically have dedicated their time to providing new Apple software to old unsupported Macs, and you can find this all over YouTube. It has completely changed everything, especially for us, you know. So by OpenCore doing what they do, we can actually put the Mac OS 15, which is Sequoia, on an iMac as old as 2011, and it runs it very smoothly. It's pretty incredible, you know, and OpenCore's been out for a couple years, and it's only getting better, you know. So big shout out to them, you know, for doing what they do. They have definitely helped us with what we do in providing these Macs and bringing them back to life. So
it doesn't really matter. It all depends on what you're
with Mac and PC.
Yeah.
You know, but each one, it's like a flavor, right? It's a preference between Mac and PC. It depends on what you want to do. I get from a lot of videographers and photographers and people in the music industry love working on Macs because they're more geared to like creatives. But when it comes to PCs, you know, you just get more for your money when you're going the custom route.
Right.
The software, Windows 11 now has come a long way. And it's pretty smooth. It's almost as if they're like mimicking what Apple is doing.
Right.
But I haven't had a lot of complaints with Windows 11. Windows 10 was super reliable.
Right.
And me personally, I love the Apple software, but if I'm looking to get the most for my money, I would go the custom PC route. Especially
PC.
Yeah. Like if you're gonna game,
Yeah.
you don't see anyone gaming on an iMac or a MacBook. You can, like, for just like little whatever games that aren't like serious, but any streamer, anyone who's really trying to get competitive or looking for the best experience, they're going to go the custom PC route, and then which means they're going to use Windows. So yeah.
You into gaming yourself, by any chance?
Yeah, I love gaming. I grew up gaming, you know, from the beginning of, you know, just regular Nintendo, Super Nintendo, and then going into the PC gaming. That was truly when it really took off, you know, with games like Diablo 2 and StarCraft. A lot of, you know, just all-nighters playing those games with my friends. And yeah, so it's funny, I've built plenty of gaming PCs. I don't have one myself because of how addicting it can be. So I limit myself to just my PS5, and I'll just play whatever on that. But eventually I will probably build a custom gaming PC. Now they have like the little micro builds, which are really cool, because that's the one complaint with the custom PCs is like you get these giant towers and you have to have this whole setup. But now they're doing what's called these micro builds, and so you can have a custom PC in a box, you know, that's only like a foot high and like, you know, a foot and a half wide, and it's great. It's very low profile. So that way you can connect it to like a television and keep it in like your living room. You know, you don't have to have this whole like desk, like this whole rig and like a office setup. You know, so that's great. And yeah, they make some really beautiful designs and cases for that. So we've built a few.
Can you fit every part? Because I know the new Blackwells are like huge. Those GPUs.
Oh yeah,
those GPUs are like huge, man. Can they fit in one of those like little small ones? Specific.
Yeah, I mean the Blackwells and all that. It's so new that I don't have all the knowledge of where that can fit. I don't assume so yet, but I'm sure soon it will. That stuff is super new. But I've seen people fit very large graphics cards in small ITX like cases. You know, Fractal makes a really beautiful case. A customer actually brought us one because he built it himself, and then of course there was an issue, so we fixed it for him, and that case was like perfect. You know, it's super small, and the GPU he had in it was about half the width of the entire case. Like it barely fit in there, but it fit perfectly. So it's super beautiful. So
man. So, like, quick question too. Like, honestly, when I know working through all this, you've got a lot of crazy customers. What's the craziest situation you've ever like encountered, especially when it's like somebody bringing a PC or
craziest customer? I'm trying to think. You know, we go through so many. That's a great question. Let's see. That's a good one off the top of my head.
If you don't mind me asking.
Yeah, no, I don't mind at all. I'm trying to think. It's gonna take me a minute to even remember.
I used to work at Rent-A-Center, and one time, because like they sell almost everything, like furniture, electronics. Somebody brought a gaming PC. Dude, we opened it up. This is gonna sound gross and
like cockroaches. Yeah, crazy. That obscene. Yeah. So that I've had a few. Yeah, I've had a few. I had a few that were filled with bugs, roaches, whatever. Especially here in South Florida, you know. Insane, we can tell when people smoke inside, whether it be cigarettes or marijuana or whatever. It's like your computer holds on to all of that, right? So when we open it, and we've seen machines super dusty to the point that now we have to take them outside to our garage and clean them because it literally becomes hazardous. You know, I've gotten sick from being lazy and just blasting it inside and inhaling that dust. You know, especially these iMacs. The dust doesn't escape, you know. Once this dust is in here, it does not escape, which will cause failure because it's overheating. So when we rebuild these Macs, we also do a courtesy cleaning and blast out all the dust that gets trapped in the fans and the vents below, because otherwise the machine just gets super hot. So
you did a great job with my rig. My rig was like full of like dust.
Oh yeah. So funny enough, there's actually one rig I can remember. There was a guy who brought us a gaming PC, and his cats like to sit on top of it. Oh, so the cats would jump on. Or they would jump in their kitty litter and then jump on his box on his PC, and by doing so, it would bring all the kitty litter to the computer, and it just like he must have let that happen for like 5 years, to the point that it all was just collecting on it. And he brought it in, and we had to clean it up, and it was pretty bad. Yeah. It was pretty bad. Yeah. So,
but you guys do a good job though. So there's really nothing you guys can't like get through. Like honestly, anything you can clean it, customize it.
Oh yeah. We can clean it. We provide cleaning. For them, and then we customize it. So we have customers. What's really fun is that we have customers. Freddie, relax, dude. Relax. Guy's super excited.
How old is he again?
Freddie is going to be 4 months on the 28th. Yeah. So here, I'll pick him up. He's gonna, he's still a baby. He's a handful. So he wants to be part of the interview. So we'll let him be a part of the interview for a little bit. So say what's up, buddy. Say what's up. I know he keeps jumping on me. I'm sure we'll get a lot of him and the shots anyway. So anyway, so this is Freddie. So if you come by, come say what's up to Freddie. He's shy. He needs to be socialized. Yeah, he's our little intern mascot. Whatever. So yeah, he's super fun. He's a 4-month-old Bernie Doodle. But back to what we were saying about the rigs. So what's really cool is that we get a lot of customers that go out and they go and buy all the parts that they want, you know, so they can customize whatever it is, but they don't really want to go through the daunting task of building it themselves. So we have plenty of people that come in and bring us all the parts, and then we just build it for them, you know, which is great because that way, and we don't mind that at all. Actually, we kind of prefer it because we don't have to go through the process of purchasing everything. We will, if someone has no idea what they want, so we'll kind of pick and choose what we recommend. But certain people are like, no, I want this card, this processor, this RAM, this case. We're all for that. Bring it all in. We prefer that you don't try to do a half build and then realize you're in too deep and bring it to us. That can be more daunting because now we have to reverse engineer whatever problem that you may have ran into. But we love it when people bring us all their boxes brand new, and we'll assemble it for you. We'll do the cable management. We'll install Windows, stress tested, make sure the GPU, the CPU, the RAM, everything looks good. And and then that way you know it's been professionally tested and it's ready to go. Right. So, but then we have others who don't know, you know, the differences between like an i7 and a Ryzen 7 and what the RAM and the GPUs. And for those people, we just kind of tell them, hey, like, what is it that you're doing? Are you trying to do like a simulator? Are you just trying to play mid-level gaming? Or are you trying to like run 4K editing or 8K editing? You know, at which point we're like, okay, because the GPU, the graphics card, is going to be usually your biggest expense, you know, and those can start at $350 to $400 all the way up to $2,800, you know. So you're talking about a 3060 or a 4090, you know. There's a huge difference. So people always ask us like, oh, how much is a gaming PC? I'm like, well, it can be $1,000 or it could be $5,000, right? So it's just whatever you want to do. So we tell people you can get a good gaming PC, I would say right in the middle, around $1,500, assembled and everything, and you're not cutting any corners. And usually when we build a machine for someone, we like to try to future-proof it by giving it a beefier power supply and a bigger case, a decent processor, and then that way in 2 or 3 years you don't have to sit there and build a whole new rig, right? You can just swap out the graphics card, maybe a beefier power supply if you're going like really crazy, but at least you can keep the board, the case, the RAM, things like that. So yeah, definitely. So we sell, that's another great offer that, you know, other service that we offer is that we sell refurbished MacBooks, iMacs, Mac Minis, sometimes iPads, but we typically stay with computers, but also PCs. We realize that most people, again, don't want to spend, you know, $1,000 or $1,500 or whatever for a brand new Mac, and usually don't need to, you know. Some people, they like having the unboxing or whatever, but now with Apple mass producing so many new machines, the ones that are slightly used have come down dramatically in price, you know. So you're talking about what used to be a $2,000 MacBook, you can now get for under $700, you know. So we specifically sell a 2019 16-inch MacBook Pro with an i7, 32 gigs of RAM, a 500 gig solid state drive for like $675, you know, and that comes with a 1-year warranty.
That's not bad.
Yeah. So that, good. I mean, those specs, you know, for that amount of RAM, you know, you will not find in a MacBook unless like in today's like 2024, 2025 series, that's going to cost you $2,000, you know, minimum. So with all the M1, M4 now, I think it's what it's on, but so we realized that was a great also opportunity for people who want to have a MacBook or just learning how to use a MacBook, but don't necessarily want and go and spend $1,000, you know. So we have MacBooks that range anywhere from $500 up to $1,000, depending on what they want. But it seems like our sweet spot and one of our best sellers is that 16-inch one that we mentioned, you know, for around the $600 to $700 range.
That's not a bad price.
Yeah, so that machine will do everything. That specific one I mentioned is perfect for people who are getting into video editing, photo editing, because it has a dedicated graphics card and it's a nice big screen. And then all of our machines come with a 1-year warranty to kind of let people, like, you know, be at ease that even though they're buying a refurbished product, it's been thoroughly tested, and you can always come back to us for support in that first year and even after that. But in the first year, any defects are completely covered under our warranty, and we're actually partnered with a warranty company that handles anything if we can't fix it in the shop itself. So.
Oh, one thing I wanted to ask too, if somebody doesn't necessarily know what kind of specs they need for whatever they're doing, and I know you already touched upon this before, but what are the basic steps that it can go through in order to, like, maybe identify what the problem is before coming to you or looking for the parts that they want? Okay,
so if they don't know the specs that they need, typically what I tell them, I specifically ask them, like, hey, like, what are your plans with the machine? Like, which programs are you specifically looking to run? And then most programs on that on their website will tell you, like, okay, these are the specs you need, and then that will kind of be like the baseline, you know, the foundation of what that computer should be minimally. And then, you know, they can go the minimal route, but I always technically will recommend them to go just a little bit past that, so that way they're not dealing with the same issue, you know, a year or two from there. Right. So most programs will tell you like, okay, if you're gonna run DaVinci Resolve or whatever, you know, video editing, that you're gonna need minimum 32 gigs of RAM and a 3070 and things like that. And that's when it gets technical. So that's why I always refer people back to the program, the manufacturer of that program, and that'll kind of give them an idea. And so, because I have parents always come to me like, oh yeah, we want to play Fortnite, and then they saw this computer on Walmart and it's like $200, and they're like, oh, will it work? I'm like, yes, but it's not going to be enjoyable, and it'll probably last 6 months, you know, and there's a reason why it's only $200. You know, it's a very minimal machine. At which point I tell people, look, if that's your budget, like, might as well save a little bit more money longer or for a little bit longer, and then buy like a PS5 or a console, right? Exactly. For like someone who's just minimal gaming. But once you get past that, which is like now a whole new genre of gaming, is the custom PCs. Most kids, if they want to brag about their machine, they're spending minimum of $1,000, you know. I've seen people build or buy pre-builts on Amazon for less than $1,000. They usually break within a year, almost always, you know. Because when you got to remember, when you build, if you sell a computer for $1,000, you have to assume that they're probably only using about $400, $500 in parts, right? So you have to cut corners somewhere. So you cut corners with the hard drive, you cut corners with the power supply. And when you do that, something's likely going to fail. So when people hear like, oh, you know, $1,500, that sounds really expensive. I'm like, yes, but the machines that we build are designed to last you minimum 2 to 5 years without any problems, depending on how you use it and things like that. Obviously, there's things that we can't control, but when you build it right and you don't abuse it and take good care of it, you should be able to get 2 to 3 years easily without any major problems, you know. But when you go and try to cut corners, like anything in this world, the problem's very, very soon, you know, especially anything under $1,000 when it comes to custom PCs. So yeah, because they need to make money off that $1,000. So the only way to do that is to build it for $600, pay a kid to assemble it for $100, and then they pocket the rest, right? So.
Last question. Words of inspiration for people that are actually, there's been a boom in kids just customizing PC for like their friends and uploading it on YouTube. So many people are starting to do that, especially when they're like trying to leave the gaming world, like the gaming console world, and then transfer themselves into PC, just live streaming, going on Twitch. So what kind of inspiration would you give for somebody that's like amassed a certain amount of like customers amongst their friends and actually wants to start a business, like a storefront like this? How do they get into that?
So I mean, the best thing, like if you're gonna go out on your own, you know, and start a company, especially like in the tech industry, it's like I used to tell one of my employees, it's like there's dozens of people who can fix computers, right? But when you're in this business, what you're actually selling is trust and reliability, and you're building relationships with those people, right? Because you really want them to think of you when the word, you know, computer and tech needs and things come up. And I always know that, or I always believe that people won't remember what you paid for the machine or what services you got. You'll just remember the experience, right? You'll remember how you felt about the transaction, and then like how you felt with the product that you received and how good it was for the value that you invested, right? So ultimately, you know, everyone wants a deal, but I've realized once you build relationships with people, it's like a mechanic, you know. As soon as you've established that relationship with that person, what it costs really is no longer a priority, right? You're going to that person because you know that they're going to treat you fairly and you're going to get a good interaction, and that can be hard to find. So if you're starting off new, you know, you can focus on the margins and doing that, but really, like, if you just take one customer at a time and treat them super, super well, they will always remember you for that, you know. And that's why we always try to do a little bit, you know, above and beyond, like the small things that we can do for people, because that's ultimately what they always remember, right? Definitely. So like if we can give them, you know, like Microsoft Office for free, you know, we'll do that. If we can clean the computer for free, we'll do that. Anything that really only costs us a little bit of time, but shows them that like, hey, we went out of our way to really give you the best experience that we could. That's what people will remember, you know, because unfortunately, as companies grow and grow and grow, the quality tends to go down, right? Yeah. Because now it just becomes a numbers game, you know, right. It's not a quality game anymore. So for us, that's really our philosophy. Like we really want to make each individual's experience really, really well, because we know they could take their machine anywhere else, right? So, and we tell them, it's like, look, you could go to Apple, you could do this or whatever, but you're not going to get the same service that you would with a small business, right. Who has your best interests at heart, you know, that really just want to take care of you. So when it comes to small businesses, definitely, like if there's a small business in a certain sector, always try to go with them first, you know, and if you feel good about it, you know, take that leap, because they're super grateful, and if they're trying to grow their business, they're going to go out of their way to make sure that you're super, super happy, you know. We'll look at our Google reviews, and they see, you know, we've recently reached over 400 reviews, and we've only been in business for a few years. And a lot of people think they're fake, but they're not. And actually, I personally reach out to every one of our customers about a week later, yeah, and ask them if they would be kind enough to leave us, you know, feedback and a review of their experience, yeah, and that speaks volumes, right? Because there's plenty of companies that I could pay monthly to just do an automated, hey, leave record a review, whatever. But you're like, for me, it's that's kind of undermines the whole thing that we're doing. You know, we want to reach out to them personally and ask them, even if it's a little more time consuming, because you're like, everything's being automated, right? AI is taking over everything. Exactly. You know, you go on Instagram and you message a company and they're like, hey, thanks for blah, 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 blah. You know, it's like, you have to fight now to get to a human. Yeah. And so that's the difference of why we've been successful, is that when people bring us their iMacs and they have an issue moving forward, they can get someone on the phone fairly quickly. Whereas, you know, when they call Apple, it's like you're talking to a robot. Yeah. So, and little things like that are what people are losing every day, you know? So, you know, small businesses are deteriorating super fast, unfortunately, because of the mass companies just taking everything over, right? So
authenticity is gold now, man.
What's that?
Authenticity is gold.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what you want. You know, you just want to be genuine, and you really want to, you know, you got to believe in what it is that you're trying to provide to people. You know, that's the other thing. Like, I get a lot of my customers tell us like they loved how passionate we were about what we do, and definitely. And I don't, like, when I go into a transaction or a discussion with one of our customers, that's not even my mindset. You know, I'm actually just personally excited to show them what their machine is capable of when it's been sitting for so many years. You know, they're not realizing that they're sitting on a really good machine that just needs a little bit of love, right? Yeah. And so I always tell my customers, like, getting rid of these iMacs, they're the perfect example. Like, throwing one of these away because it's slow would be like giving away your car because it needs new tires. You know, it just needs a little bit of maintenance, and it'll come right back to life, you know? So we really love what we do because we save people so much money, especially families and things like that, and people that just don't have the money for the new machines. So yeah, I think when going back to your original question, like, when you can find something like that, when you really believe in it, like, the money is like the very last thing that you focus on, right? It's usually like, what impact are you creating? And then if that can be your spearhead, you know, then you'll be super successful. Because once you're passionate about, and I speak on this, me personally, like, once I realized I was like making an impact, you know, on people's lives in some way, and doing it in a way that's affordable, that like gave me personally like purpose, right? And fulfillment. And I think that's what a lot of people are missing, especially with the kids now, you know, with the depression getting to where it is, like they're just looking for something to feel fulfilled, right? And so if you can create a business where you help people, or most importantly, where you solve a problem, you will do well, you know? So that's what it is, you know? You don't have to be, you know, a doctor or a lawyer or, you know, go to school for 20 years to be successful, right? You can find a problem that people have in their everyday lives, and if you can find a solution and make it affordable and market it, you know, you can be super successful, you know, and that's what I would tell to any kid, you know, don't worry about what college and what that's gonna do. Like, focus on people's everyday problems, you know, and that's how we came to this point, is that we realized people just wanted a good working machine, but we're stuck with these machines that just didn't perform to the point they'd become unusable. So once I realized that we could provide an affordable solution and market it, that it would completely undermine the whole, oh, I need to go out and spend $2,000 at the Apple store, right? So, because that's a huge investment. Whereas this now becomes just an impulse, oh, I can spend $200 and I can have my computer back, you know? So it's like a super easy decision, you know? And so that gets us really excited, and that really motivates us to continue doing what we're doing.
Yeah,
so
and they learn a few things too once you tell them exactly what you've
exactly done. Yeah, exactly. So that's our biggest hurdle. Like, our biggest hurdle is people don't realize that the only problem with the machine is the hard drive. You know, most people don't really know what a solid state drive is, and so that's what our biggest hurdle is. We have to educate everyone and kind of change the whole philosophy of how Apple has brainwashed us and other companies have brainwashed us, in that computers are just disposable when they don't have to be, you know? Exactly. So we can rebuild what we already have, so that you save money, have a great working machine, and you keep it out of the landfill, you know? So we're really big on that. And yeah, it just makes us super happy seeing people's reactions after the fact. So yeah, what people think is trash, it couldn't be further from the truth.
Because I remember back in the day, I think I saw it in a documentary, like early stages of like Apple, they were kind of fighting you guys, the middleman's, like the repair guys,
right?
Lawsuits and everything.
Yeah. They don't want, and that's the thing, they don't want people working on their machines, right? That's why they're actively making it harder, you know, which is really sad. I mean, you're talking about a company that has more money than the Federal Reserve, and they are actively making it harder to fix their machines, you know, because they don't want people to bother. They just want you to throw it away and get a new one, which is super sad. And that's kind of the direction that they're going. But yeah.
Yeah, Rob, it's been great, man.
Yeah.
It's been awesome.
Thank you so much for coming by, dude. Thank you so much for coming by.
You for everything.
And and thank you guys for joining us. Say bye, Freddie.
Freddie, want to say bye?
Say bye, Bubba. Say bye.
Say bye.
Say bye.
Say bye.
Say bye.